Hello and welcome to the Wholesale Made Easy podcast, where we believe selling on Amazon shouldn't be hard, and we're going to prove it. My name is Dylan Carter, and I'm one of the co-founders at Vendrive, a tool that helps Amazon wholesale sellers streamline their businesses, stay organized, and land more profitable accounts. I'm sitting down with other successful wholesale sellers, and together we're sharing lessons learned and what it really takes to succeed with wholesale. That is right. Vendrive started a podcast. Welcome if you're listening. My name's Dylan, and today we're going to really jump into how we source wholesale products. This is something that for some reason still seems shrouded in mystery as far as how you do it right. What do you need in terms of tools? What does a typical day look like sourcing wholesale products and really growing a wholesale business? So what we're really going to dive into today is 1, the tools we currently use, 2, our buying criteria, and 3, the actual sourcing method we consistently use to churn out profitable wholesale accounts week after week. So let's jump right into it. So in terms of the tools, you really only need 2 things when it comes to sourcing. So we're looking at DS Amazon Quick View, which is a Chrome extension, and then the Keepa Chrome extension. So these 2 tools allow you to basically peer deeper into a product without having to actually click on the product listing. So what we're going to be able to do is see if Amazon's currently selling that product, which personally I don't want to deal with. 2, how many sellers in terms of FBA are on there. And then Keepa allows us to look a little bit deeper in terms of the historical data for each product. So once we have those 2 installed, now we can really start effectively sourcing. Next is our buying criteria. We have 4 main things we look for in a product. 1, Amazon isn't currently carrying it. Now, if they've carried the product in the past, that's okay as long as it hasn't been recently, or they don't jump on the radar, all the time. And the reason for that is we just don't really care to compete with Amazon. And then number 2, at least 3 FBA sellers or more. And this really doesn't have to do with competition as it does with the initial research phase of sourcing. So when we're using a tool like DS Amazon Quick View, it will show you how many FBA sellers are on that listing. Typically, what I've seen is if there's 1 or 2 FBA sellers on it, it's a private label product. So I personally look for 3 FBA sellers or more. It's just a quick kind of workaround for me that seems to work pretty well and really saves me a lot of time. Number 3, we're looking for products that allows us to move 30 units per month in volume with the current competition. So not just the listing sells 30 units per month, but if there's 5 FBA sellers and we become the 6th, we can at least move 30 units per month. And this just kind of saves you from jumping in on, although profitable inventory, low volume. So a lot of sellers get caught up in this idea that just because it's profitable, I should carry it. And I kind of challenge that pretty frequently. And the reason for that is just because it's profitable per unit doesn't mean it's going to be profitable per month. So let's say a product makes you $10 per unit and moves 10 units. Well, that's $100 per month. Does that really push your business that much further? I would argue it doesn't. And so for me, I'm looking for a little bit more volume. Ideally, we're at hundreds, if not thousands of units per month. But minimally, I will carry a product if it lets me move 30 units per month with the current competition. So 4th and last, I need at least $4 in profit per unit. Now, how that typically breaks down is I'm looking for 30% gross. So whatever your net, that kind of depends on your business, what kind of expenses you have internally. But 30% gross on a product seems to be a good sweet spot. And I know a lot of sellers are listening to this right now and saying, wait, hang on. I'm not seeing anything over 10% gross. That's really where our sourcing model is going to come in a little bit and really help you understand how easy it is to find 30, 50, 60, sometimes 80% on products. Before we get into everything, if you want to watch a video of me actually doing all this, you can do so by going to vendrive.com/sourcing. We put together a whole video of us sourcing wholesale products live, looking over our shoulder, and then put together everything into a nice, easy to read, condensed blog post for you. Now let's get back to the podcast. Now the exact sourcing model or strategy, whatever you want to call it, we use is the reverse sourcing method. And what we're doing is we're actually finding products that are already doing well on Amazon and then going to a specific supplier, which is a bit reverse in what we would assume would be the right way to approach sourcing wholesale products, right? You would naturally assume Let's go ahead and find a great supplier and then see what they have selling on Amazon and go from there. But what you'll quickly realize if you go that route is it's a complete waste of time. I mean, you end up spending countless, tens, hundreds of hours getting approved for all these accounts. And then once you scan their list, you realize it's all garbage, right? Like they can have 10,000 SKUs, but none of it's really profitable or worth your time. And even worse, a lot of these really easy to open distributor or wholesale accounts end up being overly complicated in terms of the products, in terms of how they allow you to purchase. And there's just too much competition on these products. So the margins are so small, it ends up being a complete waste of your time. So we go the reverse route, right? So we flip it on its head and say, you know what, let's find products that are already doing well on Amazon. So we at least already know that we would want to carry this product, assuming it's profitable and meets all of our buying criteria that we talked about previously. So here's how this is going to work. We're going to start with a category. Let's say home and garden, for example. We're going to click into that category. We might go a few subcategories deeper, right? We might go storage. We might go entertainment, whatever. You pick, right? It's really open. And truly, this is the hardest part of this whole method, is picking the first category for some reason. But once you're past that, it's super easy. So we're a few categories deep at this point. Now we need to apply a few filters. And really, it's only two. So all we're really applying is $25 and up for the sell price and 4 stars and up for the reviews. You could go 5 stars and up, but 4 has been okay for me. Now, what we end up with is a list of better products that are high quality that we would want to carry. Next, we're going to use the Chrome extensions, DS Amazon Quick View and Keepa that we talked about previously, and really start sorting through. DS Amazon Quick View allows us to do is look at a list of products, let's say there's 100 per page, and quickly scan through and see which ones are carried by Amazon and which ones have at least 3 FBA sellers or more. So what I'm doing is I'm quickly scanning this page and I'm opening the products that does not have Amazon as a seller and has 3 or more FBA sellers as a new Chrome tab. So after I've done this for probably about 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes, my browser's pretty full, right? So I've got tons of tabs. Now I need to go another layer deeper and look at each individual product. This is really where Keepa comes into play. So what I'm doing is I'm analyzing the Keepa chart. I'm trying to see, historically, is this a good product? Is it a stable product? Meaning the price isn't all over the place. It's not volatile. It's had the same relative price for the last 3, 6, 9 months. Amazon hasn't been the seller previously. And then I want to see who's currently carrying it. I want to make sure that the brand's not carrying it, because then my strategy changes. I want to make sure that I'm noticing potential competitors on other wholesale products. To me, that's a green flag, because I know if we carry similar products and they're also carrying this product, I have a high likelihood of getting accepted with this wholesale account and it being profitable because we carry similar products. Now, once a product has passed this initial phase of testing, we're going to go ahead and start looking for the actual wholesale supplier or the brand. And the way we're going to do that is really just copy the name of the brand and throw it into Google. Typically, that's going to be within the first 3 search results on Google. And then what we're able to do is click through and start looking for sales-related contact information. Sometimes it's wholesale@thedomain.com. Sometimes it's sales. Whether you get an email or a phone number, that's what we're looking for. Now, ideally, when you're doing this initial outreach to a supplier, you're making phone calls. You're not sending emails. They really just don't have enough response rate as a phone call does. And so we're getting this required important information, and then we're dumping it into Vendrive. And that just keeps everything organized. So what we don't want to do is find a supplier and then immediately call them. I personally don't like to do that. I like to batch everything. So what I might do is take a day, maybe even a week or 2, and do nothing but sourcing and building a list. I'm dumping all of this information and building a database of suppliers that I want to carry. And then I'll take another 2 to 3 days, maybe another week or 2, depending on how many suppliers I found. And then I'm going to do nothing but phone calls. I'm batching each of these subtasks together. That way I can be a little bit more efficient and effective with everything. So instead of working with one supplier at a time, I'm putting them all into the same phase, into what we call a pipeline, and we're consistently moving them forward in groups versus one-on-one. And eventually we'll get to the point where we're receiving price lists and we're analyzing and looking for actual profits. Now, as products come up that are profitable, that do meet all of our buying criteria that we talked about previously, we're going to go ahead and start placing test orders. And the reason why we place test orders is to really mitigate and limit our risk. And what I mean by that is I would rather a product go wrong with 24 units than 120. And so what can happen is you place a order, everything looks perfect, and once it gets shipped out, something goes wrong. Maybe you miss something. I would rather miss something on a very small order than a very large order. So what we like to do is place a small test order, get it listed, and as soon as it starts selling, we know we have the full green light and we immediately place a 2 to 3 week order. Now, after we've placed that 2 to 3 week order, it really goes into maintenance mode for that specific product. And so the phrase we like to use is source, buy, ship, sell, repeat. Because all we're doing is we're onboarding new potential suppliers. We're placing test orders with each one to really make sure they are good products. And once they've proven that they are, then all we really have to do is place restock orders every 2 to 3 weeks. We like to keep our volumes low in terms of how much inventory we have. We like to churn products every 2 to 3 weeks. So what we notice a lot of wholesale sellers like to do is carry 30 days worth of inventory, mainly because it's lower amounts of work placing restock orders. However, we'd rather churn our money a bit quicker and then place 2, maybe 3 weeks worth of inventory and keep churning that inventory at much higher rates. Hopefully at this point you have a general idea of how we actually source wholesale products. If you still have any questions, feel free to jump to our blog at vendrive.com/blog or send me an email at Dillon, Dillon, at vendrive.com, and I'd love to answer any questions you have. So there you have it, our exact blueprint for sourcing wholesale products the simple way. Before we leave, I have a huge ask. If you enjoyed this podcast and you got value from it, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. The way we're able to have more impact on more sellers is by getting in front of them. We can do that by having more reviews and getting pushed to the top of iTunes podcasts. So leave us a review and let us know what you think of the podcast.